Hello and welcome to the post-Super Bowl episode of Sutton Impact Family Style.
Yes, and I bet $100 on the Patriots to win, thinking as bad as I've been predicting the last couple of weeks that I was going to spend $100 and the Patriots were going to lose and I was going to be happy. But I have an extra $100 and the Patriots won. But, I'm not even high or low. I mean, it was so expected. Didn't we talk about the Patriots winning by at least 10 last week on the show?
We did.
And I expected it to be like maybe 30 to 20.
Yeah.
10 points. I did not expect this.
Well, you had an offensive guru, and then you had a defense that all season long gave up a lot of points. Then all of a sudden looked like, the 85 Bears or the whatever Ravens. Like, the Patriots defense was just ferocious.
They were unbelievable. They were like I'd never seen them before. They looked like the Steelers in 1974. I mean, they just dominated. You couldn't do anything. They took the offense out. You knew they could shut down the run, and I knew the Rams didn't have the receivers that could win that game. But they could have won the game.
Yes. As we discussed, there were plays to be made. I mean, Goff missed a couple of big throws. And Brandon Cooks had a chance to make a couple big plays and didn't come up with that ball. And again, as we talked about, if you make $81 million a year and you're the number one wide receiver, you've been traded for 2 first-round picks, one of those catches, even though they were tough catches and contested, you got to make that play.
Absolutely. Absolutely you do. I was disappointed in that. But the Rams defense kept them in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Except for that one drive where it looked like the New England ran the same play 4 times and got a touchdown.
Yeah. But I think at that point, the Rams defense had also been on the field a lot.
Oh, God, yes. I mean, the longest drive I think the Rams had was 5 plays before the field goal.
Right.
And I don't know how many plays the field goal drive was, maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah, they were 3 and out so many times.
But, yeah, the Rams defense logged a lot of mileage in that game. There's no doubt.
And as the anti-New England fan, you're thinking Sean McVay, we've been told for years now he's an offensive genius, offensive guru. We've watched that team put up 50 points at different points during the season. And you thought, okay, they deferred. He got to see what Belichick was doing to him. They're going to come out in the second half and put together a drive. And they didn't.
I thought deferring was a mistake, but it became irrelevant when Brady threw the pick, the deflection pick.
Right.
Which I didn't, anticipate. But we talked last week. I said for the Rams would have to have 4 sacks and at least 2 turnovers to win the game. Would they have 1 turnover? How many sacks did they have? 1 or 2?
Not very many. I think they would
hurt him a lot, and they did knock him down a few times.
And Brady did not have a good game. That was all new. I mean, somebody compared it to John Elway won a Super Bowl throwing for 100-something yards. Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl also in Denver throwing a couple 100 yards, 100 yards with 2 picks. And Brady had, no touchdowns, an interception, barely 50% of his passes completed, but the defense did all the work for him. Didn't need to.
They were just awesome. So
it did seem like when they went no huddle, Jared Goff completed a couple of passes. And it seemed like when they kept New England on its toes and kept Jared Goff without having to think too much, just to make quick throws, he was a little bit better. I've still never been sold on Goff as a quarterback.
No, and all the stats before the Super Bowl said he's much better on play action. When we take the run away, the play action, it's not play action. You don't have play action. So he had a throw, and they just came up. They made the Rams' offensive line look like a sieve.
They really did. But we should point out that Todd Gurley, who crushed it all year, had 20 touchdowns, looked like one of the most dominant running backs in football, just disappeared in this playoffs. We have had no reports of injuries.
No.
But you have a weapon like Todd Gurley, who you paid, he's the highest paid running back in football. He dominated all year long. You threw 1 pass to him, I think, the screen that he kind of dove and lost 2 yards on. And you ran.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know what happened to him. I'd like to know. It's not quite. It's a little bit like Malcolm Butler last year. Like it's this unanswered question of why was this guy, I still don't know. I don't know why Malcolm Butler didn't play last year. I don't know why Todd Gurley was, relegated to spelling C.J. Anderson. Because it looked like he got in there and ran pretty well in a couple of plays.
Sure. Yeah, he did.
But I don't know. So obviously, and as I told you off the air, I had a problem with Edelman being named Super Bowl MVP. I know he had a nice game and he got open a lot. I just thought that if you could have collectively given it to the defense, you do. And if not, then I think you give it to Stephon Gilmore, who shut down those receivers, had the interception. I think he had 3 pass breakups. And he forced that fumble that they almost recovered, when he got stiff-armed.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he played fantastic throughout that game. And I thought that game, that was a defensive game. You give it to a defensive guy.
Or I'd give it to Belichick. I mean, I know you can't do that.
I'd give it to Belichick and the defensive coordinator, all the defense.
Yeah.
Oh, the punter. Their punter was awesome. Give him a shout out.
All those balls would bounce inside the 5 and kick either straight up in the air or back a yard. Those were incredible.
Yeah, and I think we've mentioned on the show numerous times because it's a big issue for me. I don't understand why there aren't 32 of those guys that can do that consistently. Not every time, but consistently get the ball to hit with backs. Because, your job is punting. That's all you do all day long.
Yeah.
You get $1 million, you play NFL football. You'd figure there would be lots of guys that could kick just like that dude kicks.
You would think. Well, let's stay on the Super Bowl. Let's talk about some of the commercials for our business moment.
Yeah, sure.
I thought the Burger King ad with Andy Warhol was too cerebral. I thought it was too intelligent of a commercial that most people didn't get.
It was far and away my favorite commercial.
It was your favorite?
It's the one commercial that actually made me stop and watch the commercial.
Okay.
I wasn't checking my phone. I wasn't doing anything else. Like, as soon as that commercial came on, it grabbed me visually.
Yeah, visually. But people didn't understand it. Here's what Burger King said about it. The ad was supposed to speak to Warhol's quote, "What's great about this country is that America started the tradition where the richest consumers buy essentially the same things as the poorest consumers." Now, who knew that before that ad? Did that come through to you, or did you see Andy Warhol, who's an icon of pop art, eating a hamburger?
I just saw Andy Warhol, an icon of pop art, eating. And again, it was just because, every commercial has sort of the same sheen and shine. It's shot the same way. And, and this was like, oh, this is, I don't think that's the message that really works in 2018, 19 either, though.
And I have to tell you what I thought the commercial was.
Okay.
I thought it was a Heinz commercial.
I did too.
I really did. He just bites the burger at the end, but most of the commercial is him pouring the ketchup.
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be, it's always been thick and rich or something. I don't know. Even a genius can't get the ketchup to come out of the bottle. I don't know. But that was one.
And also, that burger is not an appealing looking burger. Now, granted, that's how I eat my hamburgers, very plain.
I know. And I know you like to dip when you get a chance.
And I do like to dip my ketchup. But that, visually, that was the one part of the commercial was like, because, once you figured out, you saw the Burger King bag and everything else. But it was like, that's not a very good, that's not a good looking burger. I'm not looking at that going, you know what? I want some Burger King right now.
And I didn't know it was Burger King till they said. I couldn't tell by the wrapper or the sandwich that it was Burger King. So I'm way down on that commercial.
But like I said, it did make me stop and focus on
it. It had a different look. I agree. So let's talk about the HBO Bud Light ad shared where the Bud Light Knight gets killed.
Yes.
And you're a Game of Thrones guy, so why don't you talk to me about that? I didn't get it. So why don't you talk to me about that commercial?
I would say that, and this is going to be probably very personal, but George R. R. Martin had written 5 books that basically cover the first 5 seasons of that show. And they are some of the best, tightest written shows you've ever, despite the fact you're dealing with magic and dragons, they're all everything is plausible in that world. They don't break the rules of the world. They don't break character rules. It's brilliant. And then once the book stopped being written, those 2 idiot showrunners, and I'm going to call them idiots on here because that's what I think they are. They've ran that show and they turned that show into, oh, this would be cool. This looks cool. This would be cool. So, but the show's even more popular than ever. People just like dragons and killing things and zombies. So I think it's very on brand to parlay yourself with Bud Light, the drink of idiots across America. That just makes the most sense to me.
So let me tell you what else they were thinking about. So it's an alliance between HBO and Bud Light, and they're going to be spending money together to promote Game of Thrones and Bud Light the whole till the season starts.
Yes.
Right. But HBO, in creating the spot, considered several potential partners, including car makers and Coca-Cola. HBO had envisioned pitching a script that involved having Coke's iconic polar bear turn into a White Walker, a zombie-like creature from the show. However, Bud Light was the preferred candidate because of its popular Dilly Dilly ad campaign, which was inspired by the Game of Thrones show.
I guess I don't. It doesn't feel like either brand needs the other one in that sort of way. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, but the Bud Light Knight dies.
I know.
So does that mean he's dead? Dead for real? Like on like Game of Thrones, is he dead?
Well,
did he just die in a commercial?
Too many spoilers. Let's throw out there the fact that Game of Thrones is a show where, you don't necessarily have to be dead. So if there's continuing this partnership, there's a number of in the Game of Thrones universe you could bring the Knight back within the Game of Thrones rule book, I guess, if you will.
It said InBev reluctantly consented to sacrifice the Bud Knight, one of its most visible fictional pitchmen, who died violently in the ad.
Okay, well.
So they agreed to kill him. So, wow. I don't know what to think. But staying on Bud Light.
Yeah, so let's talk about corn syrup.
Now we know that there is no corn syrup in Bud Light. But Bud Light inferred that there is corn syrup
in Coors Light
and Miller Lite.
Yes.
And so here's what Miller Lite and Miller Coors quickly responded, saying none of its products contain any high fructose corn syrup. And then a number of Anheuser-Busch items do. So this could get interesting. And I'm wondering now, they never said high fructose corn syrup in that ad. They said corn syrup.
Yes.
So Anheuser-Busch is saying there's no corn syrup in Bud Light. And maybe there is in Budweiser and other things, but not in Bud Light. So we might have the corn syrup wars, like the burger wars and everything else. So I want to see if Miller Coors comes back with an ad campaign or something like this, now focusing on their ingredients or whatever it is. But it's interesting, to say the least.
I'm a little confused. Obviously, a few years ago we had the big, the debate about high fructose corn syrup versus regular sugar. You can go to a science website, read all about it, whether or not it's that much worse for you. But it seemed like it was much more about it being in drinks, like soft drinks and sugary sort of sodas. I never thought it was even I never knew it was even an ingredient in beer to begin with. But I'm sure, what made Bud Light decide this is where we want to go? Like
all the beer you drink on Super Bowl Sunday, and if we've already allied high fructose corn syrup as a bad thing, it's making you question. You probably had a beer in your hand. You looked at the ingredients for probably one of the few times in your life.
Probably, yeah. And then
I was just, and they made that point like 4 or 5 times. Now I did like the ad where they were taking the cask from castle to castle to see who it belonged to because it was mistakenly delivered to the Bud Light castle.
Oh, that was great. I enjoyed that part. But if it turns out that, Miller Lite and Coors Light are exonerated, did you help yourself at Bud Light?
I don't know. It's one of the more interesting commercials.
Are you hoping that people saw it on the Super Bowl? A lot of people don't read or do research. They'll believe that is truth. And until they see another giant Super Bowl ad, they won't even pay attention. They'll just assume, well, I'm drinking Bud Light because it doesn't have corn syrup in it.
Right. Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I did like the Audi commercial, too. I'll throw that out there.
Which one?
The Audi A6 commercial, I thought was a strong commercial.
So describe that one. Let me refresh my memory.
It was sort of not sci-fi, but it sort of implied a lot of high tech. And it sort of aligned Audi as sort of like almost like a next generational sort of brand, and more so than they even are now. But then also it made the A6 look like a very sexy, very cool car. But I think it came out at it was like a $30,000 vehicle.
What was the Kia one?
See, I'm forgetting the Kia one.
The Kia one is one where it's driving in the water.
Yeah.
And I forget what the name of the model was. And it said there was a disclaimer on it that this had an aftermarket aqua package or something. That you couldn't do this with your stock Kia. If you wanted to drive in the water like this, you needed an aftermarket an aftermarket aqua package.
Of course you do.
I mean, doesn't everybody have one?
I assume.
And then it was a Kia Telluride was the car.
Oh, okay.
It was 2 Kia commercials. One was about where it's made in West Georgia.
Right.
And that was really, that became controversial because they used a young kid to narrate it.
Oh, was that the really sappy one?
Yeah. The kid
okay. We never got to be famous. We never got to be famous.
No stars on the sidewalk. No statues in our honor. We're just a small Georgia town of complete unknowns. And people were uncomfortable because it was a kid. And they felt you were exploiting a kid to make up to sell a car.
I think we're just exploiting, gullible people. It's a car you're selling.
Yeah.
You're not selling like something beautiful. I mean, not, in and of itself. I actually thought that was a Ford commercial just based on Ford usually being pretty sappy. I guess I got that wrong. That's why I didn't get it with Kia. But in that same commercial, they did show the car submerged in water on that one as well.
Yep.
So I guess if anyone's listening that drives a Kia, don't drive your Kia into water.
Without the aftermarket package.
Yes.
All right. So lousy ratings for the Super Bowl. They were down. Commercials were not all that interesting. And, people said because of the political times, we're afraid to offend anybody. So we stayed pretty careful and went middle of the road.
I did say when I watched it, CBS, it was a very positive, non-controversial Super Bowl. Like it felt like everything about the CBS presentation was very much, let's just have a nice night sort of a situation, very safe. Let's not bring up any NFL controversies, nothing. But obviously, we also have Twitter and everything else to, make fun of Tom Brady kissing men on the mouth and all those sorts of things like his dad. So,
well, I want to give a shout out to Ricky Fowler for hanging on to win the Waste Management Open. And I think it was the first win where somebody had a triple bogey and a double bogey on the last round and still won.
Mm-hmm.
But Ricky went wire to wire. He led every day. So as my Oklahoma State partner, I'm real happy for Ricky. I hope this is the sign of great things to come because he's a really effervescent kind of a guy that you like to see win. He's a happy guy. He's associated with some really good causes. I like to see him be successful. So that's my speech on Ricky Fowler.
It's nice to see. Let's hop back from one goofy NFL thing for a second.
Okay.
This is the way too early Super Bowl prediction.
Okay.
Super Bowl 2020. Because there's some interesting teams that are getting a little love in Vegas, including, at 30-1 odds, the Cleveland Browns.
For the Super Bowl?
For the Super Bowl. The Chiefs and Patriots have the best odds of remaking the Super Bowl again next year.
Okay.
The Rams are still in there with the Falcons. Then there's a whole group of like Steelers, Vikings, and some other. And then the Browns are sneaking in toward the back. So,
dare I ask where the Steelers were?
They were at 20-1.
Okay. Because they're so uncertain right now. Who knows what team that's going to be, right?
Right. Because there is rumors. We won't do Steeler Minute, but the Steelers want to bring back both Brown and Bell. They want to use a transition tag, match on Bell, and just run it back for 2 years with Ben and the Killer Bees and see what you can do. Which, whatever.
Whatever.
I would like to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I mean, obviously the Steelers in the Super Bowl, but I can't pick them right now based on where they're at.
No. I would be happy with the Chiefs. The Chiefs would be I think the Chiefs would be a fun team to watch.
I think so too. And they gave New England that was the best game New England got to play this year, both times.
I agree.
And the NFC just seems like it's an absolute crap. I feel like the Rams are in some trouble moving forward next year. It's not like the Falcons where you gave up the biggest comeback in Super Bowl history and just kept blowing it. But you've got these girly questions. You've got Jared Goff questions. You've got all these high-priced guys on like one-year deals like Ndamukong Suh, who played really well in the championship game and the Super Bowl. Marcus Peters and, all these older, high-priced free agents. So it'll be interesting what the Rams are able to do next year. And where do you go,
I'd start getting an offensive line that can pass block.
Well, they seem to pass and run block all season as they had like the number 2 offense in football.
Yeah, they play action pass block, but they couldn't drop back like you'd have to do if you were behind in a game.
Yeah, but I don't think like last night, like they just got, I don't know what New England was. It was like a whole different team.
Yeah, it looked like it was 90 of them out there rushing the passer.
There is. All right, so as we move to our next topic, let me just check Bleacher Report real quick to make sure that Anthony Davis has not been traded in the last 5 minutes. But we did have a real trade this year.
Yeah, big trade.
Gave away Chris Porzingis. They gave away the zinger.
And they've got $70 million in cap room.
Yes. But Dallas gave up quite a bit. They gave up Dennis Smith Jr., who was the number 9 pick in the draft 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They gave up 2 future first-round picks. And they also have already given up another future first-round pick to Atlanta. And they took on some of the Knicks cap room along with Porzingis, who was a 7'3" guy with foot and knee problems.
Yeah.
Who is a restricted free agent.
I'm assuming that he probably agreed to that trade and will agree to an extension.
I think he and Luke, if he can stay healthy, he and Luke would be a really exciting duo. And those first-round picks will be far less important.
Agreed.
But you've given away 3 first-round picks in the next 5 years if you're the Dallas Mavericks. And as great and exciting as Luka Doncic has been, Porzingis is a question mark. But if you're the Knicks, is there such a thing as collusion in real life?
Of course there is.
Because if you made all this cap room, and you have 3 players that have already expressed interest in playing there, and those 3 players are Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, also a free agent to be, and Kyrie Irving, who, despite saying he wanted to have his name hung up in the Garden, is now saying, let's wait to see what happens in July.
Well, I think Anthony Davis is saying he's only going to consider signing an extension with the Lakers. So I think he took himself out of the next thing.
No, he said 4 teams. He's now officially at this day. He has said the Lakers, the Clippers, the Knicks, and the Milwaukee Bucks.
So he's backed off his, I only sign an extension with the Lakers?
Yes. Well, he never said that. That's just been a rumor. But those are the 4 teams he has agreed to, be traded to and would be willing to play long term.
Well, I have to say I'm shocked because I never heard anybody say they'd play long term in Milwaukee before.
But you have one of the most exciting players in the history of the game in that city.
You do.
Now, the other interesting thing is if you're another team, like let's say you're the Toronto Raptors right now, and you're riding with Kawhi for this year, you're playing great, and you've got a bunch of exciting young pieces. And Anthony Davis is locked up for this year and next year. Would you give up like Pascal Sialis and some of these, and Abadeo, the guy's name I can't pronounce, and try to go all in on Anthony Davis and have like a 2-year window with Davis and maybe get Kawhi to re-up on a 1-year deal?
Hard to say.
Mm-hmm. It is hard to say.
It's definitely, you better be certain.
Okay, so let's go with that. So better be certain, right? If you're the New York Knicks,
what you're going to have.
If you're the New York Knicks, now granted, they know about his health more than anybody, and Porzingis has missed a lot of time. If you weren't certain, would you have traded Porzingis? If you weren't certain that, this cap room was going to come to, like, you're not going to be stuck with like Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris. You're going to be getting maybe Durant and Kyrie. Are you certain?
Or else I'm feeling that Porzingis isn't the piece I can build around. And regardless, I have to do something different. But yeah, I'd probably have an inkling that, you're still New York.
You're still New York. You still got one of the best fans in the world.
The Garden.
And like I said, you got off of like Tim Hardaway's ridiculous contract. And you got off of having to pay Porzingis, and maybe you were worried about, again, because like I said, 7'3" guys with foot problem is not something the NBA has had a history of being very successful with.
No.
So now you don't have to pay Porzingis. You don't have to pay Tim Hardaway Jr. who was making, who's a fine player, but was making way too much money for where he was. You got 2 future first-round picks and $70 million in cap space, and you're the New York Knicks. And you kept all your young assets.
Yeah.
And you added a young asset in Dennis Smith Jr., who apparently the Knicks loved, even though he's fallen out of favor with almost the entire league. So even on the surface, it doesn't seem like maybe that's that bad of a trade. Now, like I said, if it's those guys plus Jimmy Butler, who nobody else wants to sign next year because he's apparently just a team malcontent, and a guy like Tobias Harris, who was a really nice player, as we watched in Orlando. Mm-hmm. He's had a fantastic season, but you don't, that's not a guy you want to pay big money to either.
No. Well, I went to the Oklahoma City Heat game on Friday night.
Okay.
And, I've always been a big Russell Westbrook fan and a Thunder fan. And I have to admit, I kind of like Russell Westbrook in this reduced role.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of do. I mean, I kind of like him as a distributor and enabler. But I'll tell you what, there was a time he went by Dwayne Wade like Dwayne Wade was standing still. Dwayne Wade looked like he should have done the Grand Tour last year. He did not look good coming in off the bench. Really sad because he's such a good player.
He is. He's historically great. And I feel like, especially in the wake of this James Harden season, like people are trying to elevate. I mean, first off, James Harden has never won anything in his life. He choked in college. He's choked in every playoff game, the big playoff games. Like last year, he was like 2 for 15 in the finals. I heard he choked on his prom night. He's just, let's hold it, putting him in the pantheon of history. Dwayne Wade belongs there as far as 2 guards go.
Yeah. No.
But you can't start putting Harden in the top 5 2 guards of all time because he's having he's on a ridiculous stretch, but you got to stop choking in big moments before we can.
Like I said, I like Russell Westbrook playing the way he's playing. I like him, using Steven Adams much more than he has in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Paul George looks like Paul George of 4 years ago, 5 years ago. He is absolutely on fire. And then Schroeder, like I told you, didn't miss a shot in the third quarter and had 24 points off the bench. You get somebody having 24 points off the bench in a game, let alone a quarter. You've got something special.
Well, they said one of the reasons Russ's free throw percentage is down this year is if you watch Russ in the past, he'd like to, in between shots, he would walk back to half court and come back.
Mm-hmm.
And the NBA said, no, you can't do that anymore. And his free throw percentage is like 15% down this year. And his shooting is across the board. Like if he gets his shooting up a little bit and his free throw percentage is a little bit higher, they would be a legitimate contender, I think.
Absolutely, he would.
But the way Boogie is playing and the way the Warriors are playing.
Yeah, and we said all along that once he came back,
if he was,
it didn't matter what they did up till that point. Because they were going to be a drastically different team with him back. And they are.
Yes. Well, speaking of drastically different teams, if you're the New Orleans Pelicans, you've been given sort of what Anthony Davis has told you, which means the Boston offer is probably off the table, which wasn't probably as good anyway, right?
Probably.
And you got Lonzo Ball already mouthing off that he doesn't want to be in New Orleans. Now he and his dad are saying Phoenix for me, Phoenix for me, Phoenix for me. Apparently that's where the Balls want to vacate is Phoenix. Brandon Ingram does not look like anywhere near the player people thought he was going to be. What do you do? First round picks and they take one of your bad contracts, but if they have LeBron and Anthony Davis and a third player, nobody goes to watch the Pelicans play now.
I'm all in on Anthony Davis wherever he goes.
Yeah.
I just think the Lakers have the least amount of talent to give up. Right.
And if you take that offer, like I said, people down here don't talk about Anthony Davis. They don't go watch Anthony Davis. But now all of a sudden, if it's, Kyle Kuzma is your centerpiece and Brandon Ingram, like nobody's going to watch that team.
No.
And then what do you do if you're the Pelicans? I mean, you just.
Well, like you and I talked before, I think this is the next step in the Seattle Pelicans.
Yes. But along with Anthony Davis, and obviously Jimmy Butler did it, and we've watched a number of players do it, like with the collective bargaining agreement, one of the things that was supposed to help the smaller market team was the Supermax, right?
Yep, the bird rule. That you could pay higher.
But when that
but the agents figured it out, because all you have to do is to go wherever you go, you want to be, and sign a smaller contract,
right?
And then you become their bird rule, and then they can pay you the next year.
Exactly.
So you don't get hurt.
If you don't get hurt, and if you're Anthony Davis, again, you can get, as opposed to the $230 million contract, you can still get like a $204 million contract. And I know, don't get me wrong, I would love to have the difference of that amount of money, or even a percentage of the difference of that amount of money, but it's not as big of a difference as it used to be,
No.
So how are you going to, how can they help the small markets maintain? Because,
I don't think you can, because I think what we've learned is that players are actively, you talk about owners colluding, but players are actively recruiting.
Right.
And so, there's no doubt that LeBron's been recruiting Anthony Davis all year long.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, that's where they're going to go. And you're going to have these, what they did in Miami with the Heat a few years back when LeBron went to the Heat, was the idea of creating a team that's going to win a championship for however long as it takes, and create a dynasty, create a run. Now, Golden State did that, but they did it they did it accidentally. They didn't do it with any intent. They just happened to have the right pieces there. And then they were able to attract Kevin Durant, which then put them over the top. But he was a legit free agent.
Yes, he was. And anybody could have theoretically signed him.
But it's not like, now we're saying, the Knicks are saying, hey, we have $71 million for the cap room. And,
right.
The Lakers saying, we want to come here and play. And I want to do this, I want to do that. And it kind of, the balance of powers with the players.
Right. But what does that eventually do to the small market team, though? Because there's only going to be so many stars to go around.
Well, that's right, but there's only going to be so many markets they're going to go to, and that's what equals it out.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, though. Like, you get a city like New Orleans, which I guess maybe moves to Seattle eventually, but your Orlando's, even your Atlanta's, it's a big city, but nobody ever goes there. Like,
I mean, I could see us get to a point where there's 10 legitimate contenders and the same 10 contenders every year. It's going to be states with good weather.
Right.
It's going to be states with really good taxable benefits, or no tax at all.
Or lifestyle, Miami, New York.
Lifestyle, and also other entertainment options to become involved in other things other than basketball.
Right.
And those are going to be the things that drive people crazy on. So you look at Indianapolis, it doesn't have any of those things. Okay. The Russell Westbrook and Paul George re-signing to stay in Oklahoma City, that might be the rare occurrence.
Oh, I think so. Well, I think Russ is a very stubborn, loyal person. So I think he was going to sign back no matter what. And then Paul George, I think he just, I think he just really likes Russ and those guys, and just fell into, like you said, it was a good basketball situation.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's going to be rare.
It won't be as common. It won't. Yeah, it will happen. That was rare, and it'll continue to be rare. But you're going to have markets that probably aren't, they're going to get the number one draft pick, and they're going to have that number one draft pick for the 4 years of the rookie contract. Then they're going to leave. If they turn out to be as good as they're proposed to be. Like
right.
if Zion is as good as he is, wherever he signs for 4 years, you can't count on him staying there for his career.
No. But I would say in defense of New Orleans, I mean, you have the nightlife, legalized gambling, and debauchery down here. Other cities. You got more nightlife.
Right, you got places to get in trouble.
Yeah,
but you don't have the taxes.
No, we have a lot of taxes.
Yeah, so I don't know. Stay tuned. The continuing story, and then staying on this free agent thing, Manny Machado and Bryce Harper remain unsigned, and we're now in February. We're now less than 2.5 weeks from reporting the training camp.
Any predictions?
I still think Bryce Harper goes back to the Nationals if that 10-year, $300 million offer is legit.
If you're
So I've not heard anybody with a better number than that.
It's true. If you're the Nationals, you keeping that offer out? Like, is that offer still out there?
I don't know if it's still out there or not, but I just don't think people want to sign somebody for 10 years.
No.
10 years is like it's ridiculous, 10 years.
Yeah.
But to get to the number, you have to have that many years.
Right.
But the truth is, you're going to get all the value in that contract in the first 4 to 5 years. Then you're going to have a declining player that's not going to be worth the money he's getting paid.
And as people pointed out, Bryce Harper's been not the same player he's been. The last 2 years have not been great Bryce Harper years.
No. So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah. Sports.
Entertainment, still enjoying the True Detective. Really good. Enjoying The Passage. Have you watched any of The Passage?
I find it to be one of the most disappointing shows on television.
I don't know why I like it, but I do.
It's just disappointing because the source material. I know I hate to be the snobby, but it comes from such good source material, and this looks like it was made for the people that eat Olive Garden. I just think if this had been a show, this is a show that should have been on HBO or Showtime or FX or somewhere or AMC.
Yep.
It feels very networky, and I don't dislike Zach Morris. He's fine.
Yeah, he surprises me. He's good in that role, and the little girl in that role is awesome.
Yeah, but even in the trailer, they gave away like the first half of the book one by saying they should be afraid. I don't know. It's very telegraphed and feels very network television.
Well, because they're not going to use all the source material. They can't commit to that many episodes to do it all.
No, but it's already like, wait, we already know that she's the aunt. Not that we didn't, but it's just.
Well, I'm looking forward to the second episode tonight of I Am the Night. I thought the first episode was really well done. Okay.
I have not checked that one out.
Okay, so I've enjoyed that. So those things are good. Food moment. Where did I eat? Nowhere good in Miami.
Sad.
Phoenix, I ate at Blanco, which I've eaten at before. And I've eaten at Texas. I talked about both of those before. So nothing new. Really looking forward to seeing you this week and doing our GW Fins and cake and wherever else we end up going.
True. Very nice. Very nice.
And I will post pictures on my Twitter account of the places that Jason and I eat this weekend in New Orleans.
Yes, indeed. That sounds excellent. And I randomly rewatched The Warriors this week, and it was fantastic. With the baseball furies and the cool soundtrack. So don't forget to watch that movie someday.
Yeah.
That's another movie that when I watched it, it obviously has some flawed acting performances and some of the fight scenes are a little bit weak.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to think, could you remake that in modern day, or would you have to take that, a few years into the future, or would you have to keep it set in the 80s like it is? Couldn't figure it out.
Well, you're kind of like a Mad Max thing.
Because New York in the 80s felt much more, at least in the movie, it feels like it's a much more open, area. Where now with cameras and helicopters and police everywhere, I just feel like it'd be much tougher to pull that off. But that'd be a different podcast anyway, so we won't bother people with the Warrior talk, I guess.
We'll just have to see where it is. It's just,
yeah, one
of those things. It could be a cult classic. You can bring it back a variety of different ways. So,
the original source material is a Greek history.
Yeah,
a small group of Spartans that have to fight their way back home, which is,
it's like a David and Goliath with a group.
Exactly,
the classic story that we all love and we never get tired of.
Never. All right, so next week we will talk more food because we'll be in New Orleans. Or you'll be in New Orleans. I'm already here.
In New Orleans, and I am lining up our guests for the month for the Sport Business Moment.
Awesome.
So I think my first guest is going to be, I'm going to have Jeremy Walls, and I'm going to have him talk about the Miami Open, which is going to be the big tennis tournament in Miami, where the tennis is actually going to be inside. The grand court is going to be actually inside the football stadium. They will build a mini tennis stadium inside there and use all the amenities of the stadium to service the people there. It's kind of interesting. I saw it the other day, and I was kind of blown away by it. So we will have Jeremy on in one of our shows in February.
Sounds good. Sounds very good.
All right, so there won't be any football for a while on our show. We'll go spend more time on basketball.
Until the draft.
And then, Jason, it's one of your favorite things. So I know we'll have a great draft show.
And we still have, we'll have constant Kyler Murray questions too. As that guy is being very saucy with every reporter he talks to.
We have to see if he's playing them.
Yeah, he does not like being asked questions, even though he won't commit to whether he's going to be in spring training or in the NFL draft. He gets very angry when people ask him about it.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is helping his draft stock in either way.
Well, nobody's concerned. You want to waste the number one pick on the guys who's playing against the baseball team and put him on a 40-man roster.
I know.
So we'll have to see how it goes. All right, everyone, have a great week. Don't you